All right, welcome to Unit 4, Concept 3, Notes on Meiosis. And so before we kind of actually get into it, I want to talk about the connection between the three concepts in this unit. So this unit, Unit 4, Genetics, the essential question, the question we're trying to answer, is how is genetic information from a living organism passed on to its offspring? And so we learned in Concept 1, DNA structure and replication, we focused on how and where genetic instructions are stored. And so we learned all about DNA, which is a nucleic acid composed of different nucleotides, long chains of nucleotides. And then we learned that the information is actually stored depending on the specific sequence of nucleotides that occur in specific locations. So all those A's, T's, C's, and G's, we learned about how we learned about how those nucleotides are read in pairs of three. They're read in pairs of three codons, and then those three codons code for a specific amino acid. And so that led us into concept 2, protein synthesis, which is how that genetic information is then used to keep us alive. So the central dogma of genetics, remember, it states that DNA is in the nucleus, found in the nucleus. Can't leave. It's nice and protected in there. Doesn't want to leave. However, there's an issue. The ribosomes, which are the little protein-making factories, those are located outside of the nucleus within the cytoplasm of the cell on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And so to fix this problem, our cells came up with a way to make a copy of our DNA instructions in the form of mRNA, RNA, a form that can leave the nucleus and then travel to the ribosome, where it can be translated into a sequence of amino acids, which is what makes up a protein. And so then we learned about the roles of proteins. Well, we've been learning about the role of proteins in our bodies. They're hormones, they act as catalysts, they make up our muscles. Basically, we would not be alive without proteins. Hashtag proteins matter. And then we talked briefly about how errors in this whole entire process, either in how DNA is replicated or stored, or how they are then transcribed and translated into proteins. We learned about how if problems in there, mutations, can then end up with either life-altering changes. For example, like Hayden, who had one base pair change, ended up with a fatal disease, Tay-Sachs. Or if the mutation actually ends up coding for the same amino acid, the protein's not really affected at all, then mutations aren't always bad. They're just kind of just hanging out there, and it's kind of based on luck, really. And so concept 3, meiosis, we're kind of jumping backwards a bit. And we're looking at, okay, so we know how that DNA, those instructions are stored. We know how they are then used to build proteins that keep us alive. But take a step back. Where did that information come from? We all know that we get traits and we inherit stuff from our parents, but we don't really know what that means. And so we get that information, and it all starts with the formation of gametes. So our sex cells, the formation of egg cells and sperm cells. And so then when those two cell types come together, they fertilize and make us. They make a zygote, and then from there on, from that point forward, life begins for us. And so then the last question in this concept is kind of looking at genetic variation. So why do people look different? Why are we not exact clones of our parents? And so I just really wanted to briefly overview why all these three things are connected, because they are very connected. Okay. So our bodies have two types of cells. The first type are called somatic cells, or just our body cells. And we say that they are diploid cells, or that they have the chromosome number 2n. And that basically, all that means is that that cell has two complete copies of DNA. It has one from mom, one from dad. So they don't have half the genetic information. They have everything that you could possibly need, all 46 in humans. And so examples of somatic cells are blood cells, lung cells, muscle cells, heart cells, basically any other cell that's not a sex cell. And so with that being said, second type of cells are our gametes, or our sex cells, and they are haploid, or they have chromosome number N. And again, that just means it's just a way in math to be able to figure out the different numbers of chromosomes in sex cells versus somatic cells. And so in somatic cells, it literally just means that they have 2 times the amount of our gametes that our gametes do, 2 times N. So N represents the number of chromosomes in sex cells, which for us would be 23 in our egg and sperm. In our egg and sperm. And if we multiplied that by 2, we would get 46, and that would be the number of chromosomes in our somatic cells. Okay.
Remember the differences, keep mitosis, make somatic cells. The cells that make up all of me, separate my sex organs, that help myself take half of me. Yeah.
I told you I wanted to get this song stuck in your head. I'm delivering. You're welcome. Okay, so not only do our bodies have 2 types of cells, they also have 2 types of chromosomes. And so the first type of chromosome found in our body are called autosomes. And autosomes carry traits that make us who we are. And so an example of these types of chromosomes are chromosome pairs 1 through 22. So you'll see here, kind of a side note, but not really. You'll see here, this is called a karyotype. And a karyotype is just a diagram that shows the number and appearance of chromosomes in a cell. So we can see here, if there were numbers here, this would be chromosome pair number 1, this would be 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'll keep going, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So chromosome pairs 1 through 22, all of these are considered autosomes because they carry traits that make you who you are. If you'll remember, we get 1 chromosome from each of our parents. And so here we'll have, let's say this is chromosome from mom, and then over here we'll have chromosome from dad. And then here we'll have chromosome from mom and dad, and so on and so forth. Now, the second type of chromosome is called a sex chromosome. And sex chromosomes carry traits that make you who you are as well, but they also determine your sex. And this is separate from your gender. I'm not going to get into a big discussion about that, but just know sex and gender are 2 different things. And so whether or not, let me just give you the example first. So the example of your sex chromosomes is chromosome pair number 23 over here. And so you will either be born with 2 X chromosomes, which will then make you a female, biologically a female, or you will receive 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome. And this karyotype is the karyotype of a female because you can see here in chromosome pair number 23, they look homologous. They look as if they're the same size. There could be a little bit of an argument here as to whether or not they are exactly the same, but let's just say for argument's purposes, they look the same to me. And so this would be the karyotype of a female. Now, the Y chromosome, no one really knows why. The Y chromosome is just kind of stumpy and short, and I think they described it in Crash Course. He describes it as like short, fat, and stumpy. I don't know. It just is a very different size, and it's a lot shorter. And so this last pair of chromosomes, if you were a male, they actually are not homologous. That kind of brings us into the next slide as to what homologous chromosomes mean. But just to reiterate, 2 types of chromosomes: your autosomes, pairs 1 through 22, and then your sex chromosomes are just pair 23, and you either have 2 X's and you'd be a female, or you'd receive 1 X, 1 Y, and you'd be male. Okay, so I mentioned homologous chromosomes. Homologous chromosomes are just chromosome pairs that have the same types of genes. So you have two sets of a chromosome. You have 1 from mom, you have one from dad. And so right here I outlined this is chromosome number 6. And let's say, for example, on mom's chromosome on the left, remember, chromosomes are just one long, continuous strand of DNA. Remember those A's, T's, C's, and G's? T and A, C and G, G and C, T and A, A and T. All those sequences, if we uncoiled mom's chromosome, we uncoil it, we stretch it out, and we make it nice and flat, nice and straight, kind of like stringing rope or something, or like twine. then we would find a very specific sequence right here, and maybe that would be the gene for eye color. And let's say maybe once we uncoiled it, it was around, it was kind of like up here towards the top. And so let's say on mom, you get the gene, you get blue eyes or something, that specific sequence up towards the top, okay? What this means, so it's homologous chromosome, chromosome number 6. If we were to do the same thing, uncoil it, straighten it out. They're very, very, very long, so it'll take you some time. Once you straighten that out, you would find the same gene, although it might not necessarily be coding for the same allele. That's a vocab word that you don't need to know yet. Next unit you will. But let's say dad gives you the copy of brown eyes. But that gene will be located on that same location up around here on dad's version of that chromosome. So you have one from mom, one from dad. Same genes are found on the same locations. However, this is different from sister chromatids. Sister chromatids are 2 identical copies of the same chromosome. I'm going to lose you. You're going to get confused on this. Just know it ahead of time. This is the one thing that always gave me trouble. Even gave me trouble in college. Honestly, I'm probably going to mess it up talking about it now. It is very easy to get confused. All you need to know is the sister chromatids are after DNA replication. So remember, before the cell is preparing to divide, so either before mitosis or before meiosis, those 2 chromosomes, so you have one from mom, one from dad, are going to have to copy themselves. So it's going to look like this. You have this one copy, you make a copy. That's your one from mom. And then you had your one from dad, you make a copy of dad's, you have one from dad. These are called sister chromatids. Okay, so you can have a sister chromatid pair, a sister chromatid pair over here, a sister chromatid pair over here, and then both of these could be homologous chromosomes if they all have the same gene located in the same location. They all have the eye color gene towards the top, that specific section of DNA. The one from mom has it, the copy of mom has it, the one from dad has it, and the copy of dad has it. Okay. Look that up, watch that 10 million times, replay that 10 million times, practice that 10 million times because it is confusing. I'm sorry, but you'll get it. I believe in you. Okay, and then I kind of already basically went over this slide, so pause it if you, actually here's a challenge for you. Pause it and try and explain everything I just said and try and use this picture to help you. The more active you are in your learning, the more you're going to get out of these videos.